CR101radio.com, podcasts, and more.
39. Hindsight. One of the most common forms of pretended wisdom is hindsight, wisdom after the event. It is always easy when a thing is done to recite reasons why a man should have done thus and so, but to give the wise counsel before the event is a rare gift. Some years ago, I heard a historian, an old reprobate, ridicule several great men of past history, calling attention with scorn to their mistakes. Yet the errors of these men at their worst would almost have been virtues in this historian, who at his best was no more than a learned and drunken fool. Many historians are so puffed up with the wisdom of hindsight that they find it difficult to forgive men and nations for not making use of them, and they vent their frustrations on great men of the past. It is easy to have hindsight when we know the beginning and ending, but to judge the future with a limited knowledge of the present is another matter. I once told a man who, with hindsight, was condemning himself for what he called a wrong decision, that his decision, in view of all that was possible for him to know at that time, was a very sound one. Not being God, he could not possibly have known some of the factors that set aside his efforts. The wisdom of hindsight is a dangerous and false kind of wisdom unless it becomes a means of correcting what errors we make and learning better judgment for today's decisions. Moreover, the wisdom of hindsight is a foolish thing unless it leads to foresight, to better planning and sounder actions today and tomorrow. Most of all, there can be neither sound hindsight nor foresight without faith. In perhaps the greatest single sentence of Scripture, St. Paul declared, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." Romans 8:28. Our sovereign God rules and overrules in all things to bring good out of our sins and out of our mistakes when we are his people. We can thus, with hindsight, see that God has used our failures to bring forth good, and with foresight we can act in the assurance that we are never alone, that God is with us and his purpose shall prevail. Thus we can survey all events in the confidence that, quote, "In all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us." Romans 8:37. The only wise hindsight and foresight is to view all things in terms of God. All things come from him, and they shall accomplish his purpose in the face of all things. To see anything apart from God, however perplexing it may be, is not wisdom but blindness, whereas to see his hand in all things is true hindsight and foresight.